Hey folks, Steel Cowboy here, coming to you from the steamy hot state of Texas tonight. And I have a rather ambitious, at least ambitious for me, project that I'm working on right now. And this is a two-part video on how to date and understand buying aged tins of tobacco. And given the prices of aged tins today, it's certainly worth getting to know. A lot of what I've learned has come from my fellow pipe smokers. I don't know it all, but I can't even scratch the surface even in a two-part video. But maybe I can help you cut some corners. What took me years to learn as I built my pipe cellar. And I'm willing to learn as well. So if there's something that you have to show me, please put it in the comment box and I will happily respond. And so let's begin. As always, before I start, I want to talk about what I'm smoking tonight, and keeping in with the theme of tonight's episode, I'm doing some very old capstan, and this tin you're going to see again in a few minutes. And I am smoking it out of an L-Tang bamboo poker. Want to have a nice pipe for expensive tobacco. It's a psychological thing. If you're a Captain Black guy or a Prince Albert guy, this video might be something, and you're committed to that. There's nothing wrong with it. I actually like both of those blends a lot. But this may not be the video for you. However, hopefully it will be, because you'll see kind of the benefits and why would we want to buy an aged tin and what the value is behind it. And this video is a follow-up to what I did about cellaring bulk tobaccos. There's a tremendous value in aging your tobaccos, but sometimes you can't quite do it because there's a blend you don't have and you really want, and you're willing to shell out some dollars to do that. The biggest thing, and you're going to see this theme run through both of these videos, is you need to be a detective. The more you know, the better off you're going to be in terms of dating tins. Whether you're selling stuff out of your old cellar, out of your own cellar that you haven't in fact marked the date on, or you're at a pipe show, or you're buying something on eBay or from somebody with a website, all of these tips will come in handy. Again, these are always used from the couch, but I hope it helps out. So let's begin with the easiest ones first. The easiest ones to date, obviously, are the ones that are already dated for you by the manufacturer. So here's a GL piece. You've got your date on the bottom from 2009, nice and easy. Another blender doing that is Mac Baron. I've circled it, and you can see it there in the corner, upper corner on the other side here. What's surprising to me is the number of manufacturers that don't date their tins. And the only reason why I can think this is the case is because cellaring hasn't been around a very, very long time. 25 years ago, maybe even early, in a newer time frame than that, cellaring kind of became a fad when tobacco smokers started to realize the benefits of aged tobacco. I think that some of the manufacturers just haven't caught on to that yet. So those are the easy ones. Another easy one is McClelland. And here's a tin of Grand Orientals. There's a code here. There are pipe smokers that may be watching this video that understand the code in its entirety. I don't. What I care about is the last two digits, because those last two digits tell me the year that the tin was produced. So some blenders will put month, day in year, some will put month in year. In McClellan's case, we know that this tin was produced in 2009. So, that's the easy stuff. Now, what about hand dating? And in part two, I'm going to get a little bit into possible unscrupulous sellers. But I will tell you that 99.9% of pipe smokers, in my experience, are very honest people. And they tend to be honest about the dating of their tins. And of the literally hundreds of aged tins that I've purchased, I cannot think of maybe 3 or 4 people at the most that I've caught deliberately trying to mislead me. So the percentage is very tiny. So here we have an example of somebody that is, you can see the sticker here, that I purchased a tin from, and they had put a hand date on it in 2008. I think they're generally reliable. I know there's some pipe smoking friends of mine who are a little more leery. Quite frankly, I have not seen that to be the case over time. But as you learn more about these little pieces of information that all kind of come together, keeping those hand dated tins sellers honest is actually pretty easy. If you're not dating your tins, it's a smart thing to do. If you're not dating your bulk tobaccos, it's a very smart thing to do. Maybe you won't like that blend down the road and you're going to want to sell it. Most other smokers will take your word for the date you wrote on there, as long as they have some general knowledge of how to date tins. So, I'm going to continue to go upward in terms of things to look for, but the next thing is label changes. And label changes are a great way to tell a point in time. And so if you have or can make a mental note or a written note, or when you see your favorite blend change labels, certainly notice, because that will give you a point in time, a frame of reference for future purchases. So let me give you a great example of that. Let's go back to our Samuel Gayworth chocolate flake. If you notice here, this is the top label. Here is a new tin of Lakeland Dark. The fundamental difference between the old labeling and the new labeling is the red banner where Samuel Gayworth is written. And you'll find that on the newer tins of Samuel Gayworth. Samuel Gayworth started with that new logo right around 2008. So if you're looking at a tin that doesn't have that, there's a strong likelihood that that tin was made prior to 2008. And we're going to discuss these tins quite a bit, but I'm going to get back to them in a little bit. Another change in labels that has occurred through the years, and it's one that I think causes a tremendous amount of problems, particularly on eBay, but I've seen the problems occur at pipe shows as well, is Dunhill. And in Dunhill's case, you've got labeling changes that occurred even though the blender didn't. You've got changes that occurred when the blender changed. So I'm going to dig into that kind of quickly, but typically today, when we look at a Dunhill tin, if we look at the back of the tin, what we're going to see is this white sticker. And the bottom of that sticker says Made in EU. So you know that that sticker indicates that that is a newer production Dunhill tin. And that sticker started showing up around 2006, give or take a year. And that would typically indicate an Orlik production tin. And why is that important? Well, if you're a seasoned long-term pipe smoker, You probably are already aware of this, but the older tins, just because they're old, increase in value. But also, there's a lot of debate in the Dunhill lovers community, of which I am one. It's my favorite line of tobaccos of all the lines that are out there, as to who made the best version of Dunhill. Was it Dunhill themselves? Was it Murray's when Murray's out of the UK was producing them? Or is it Orlik now out of Denmark? Personally, for me, I think Murray's 965 is by far my favorite in terms of the Murray's era. I don't think there's hardly any difference whatsoever with Early Morning Pipe by Orlik. And that's a blend that I smoke 365 days a year. So when you're looking at a Murray's tin, here's a great example. And you can see the script writing up top, so that tells you it's a later version of Murray's. The label is painted, and the back side is got just a small sticker on it. There's no large white sticker. So this is going to indicate a Murray's era tin. Now where it can get a little confusing is we'll go back to the tin here of Elizabethan. You'll notice at the front of the tin is got the same painted label. A lot of sellers, eBay sellers in particular, get confused because the top says made in the UK. However, this tin has got the white sticker on the back. Now, there's some debate, and a lot of things in the pipe community are rumor, right? Some are factual, but it's difficult sometimes to sort through that. Some folks say that there were some leftover tin lids used by Orlik at the beginning era in the first year of Orlik production. Other folks say that those white stickers were used by Murray's prior to the changeover to Orlik. And so why is this important? Well, an Orlik tin of Early Morning Pipe, or 965, that's from 2000 and let's say 8, versus a Murray's tin from 2004, there's going to be about a 50% or more cost differential. Now, this is true with even within blenders, right? So I'm going to jump ahead a little bit, but here's a tin of 965. That would be from the late 80s, early 90s, and here is our Dunhill with the script writing from the early 2000s and late 1990s. Same blender. However, this tin will bring in well over $100. This tin will bring in somewhere in the vicinity of $55. So I find that Dunhill and Rattray's tend to be some of the more difficult ones to point out, and so sorry to get bogged down in that a little bit. There is a late tobacco smoker collector by the name of John Loring, and he wrote some tremendous things about Dunhill and other British tobaccos, as well as Dunhill pipes, that help date these tins. And you can find the Loring pages if you Google them. I don't have the website handy, just thought of it now, but it would be a great resource to check out. So let's put that aside here for a second, and let's get into new blenders, because a lot of times blending changes will also bring about a demarcation in time. Certainly we're seeing that now with the Standard Tobacco Company of America, with Russ Willett doing the blending for the John Cotton's blends. The new Warhorse are great examples. Different packaging, different blenders, and some would argue a totally different tobacco. So from a taste standpoint, and I think that the new ones are great. I don't think they taste personally a lot like the old ones, but I like them both. And so the question is, from your taste standpoint, like our friends who love Dunhill tins, you may want to know who that blender was and knowing what those tins look like at the time. So let's talk about that a little bit. Escudo, very popular Virginia Perique blend, right? Well, Escudo, excuse me for banging the camera, I'm giddy, was originally made by Copes, and you'll see the name Copes up here. You'll also notice that the current tin, let's go this way, is much larger. Now, these tins of Copes, they're very, very rare. They're going to be over $150 a tin. When Copes took over, when A&C took over for Copes, they maintained the same tin size. This particular tin is from April of 2000, and they did production up until around 2009, 2010, and so A&C is a great example where tin size matters, but you also have tins made by the same blender that are of different sizes. Now, the current producer of, just so nobody thinks I've lost my mind here, is Scandinavian Tobacco Group. The A&C tins towards the final years, about 2005 to 2009 or so, look just like this, except this little scanned logo right here at the bottom is gone. So another great example of packaging difference, blender difference, and Pipe World loves a good debate, and the wallet comes out at different points in that debate depending on where your tastes are in the age of the tobacco. So having a sense of who made what when and what does that packaging look like. I want to get into another example of packaging, a very popular blend. Now in this case, the blender did not change, but the packaging did change, and the packaging helps us know at what point in time or what era at least that these tobaccos were produced, and that does drive cost. So my wife told me I have to be careful not to hold out my pinky finger, so I'm going to try to resist that. So let's look at Esoterica. The current production of Esoterica, here's a bag of Penzance, and you'll notice it's a Mylar bag and it's gold. These bags were produced somewhere around 2011, moving to today's current date. So you know that if you see a bag of this color, you know that this was no older than about 2011. Very important. Why? Because Penzance right now for a newer bag in the secondary market is $75 to $100. Here's a bag of Dunbar, and you'll notice it's also Mylar, but it's a cream colored bag. So this is pre-2011. I recently saw a seller on eBay selling bags of Esoterica, gold ones, for $259. Now, I would like to believe that that person simply didn't know the date, because the date that they had on there was inaccurate. Maybe they were trying to pull one over, but my belief is they simply didn't know what they had. And it's good to point out, particularly on eBay, you have a lot of grandchildren selling grandpa's pipe collection and tobaccos. He's been deceased. They find it in an old cabinet and they think they can make some money, and they just don't know what they have, and so you're going to get a lot of that stuff. But because this stuff is so expensive, you want to make sure that you don't overpay. And again, we're gathering lots of little bits and pieces of information. A couple quick more examples of changes in tin size. Peterson's. Irish Flake. I'm sorry, University Flake. This one here, I purchased in 2006. This is the current production tin. I'm not quite sure the cutoff date on this, but it was probably late 2000s. So you want, again, you want to know when these things happen. Another great example is Solani 633. To me, one of the most overlooked, fantastic Virginia barriques out there. And in the case of Solani, they had a lot of changes in their tin labels, but the size of the tin really is an indicator. So here we have current production. This is the big one's from 2014. This tin here is from 2001, the small one. Up until about 2004, they were producing those small tins. Labels changed, but the size of the tin didn't. And I want to point out too, going back to our Scudo example, these were produced in these smaller tins by A&C Peterson till about 2004, 2005. So if you see a tin of the larger variety and somebody says it's 2002, it isn't. Now, some blenders, one more. Peterson's Perfect Look. Originally in a square tin, today in a round tin. So just real quick on that. Some blenders don't change, as I said, but the tins do. Greg Peace, GL Peace, is a great example. In the early days of GL Peace, you saw this size tin, right? And you get a sense of how old it is. At some point in production, they went to this size tin. I don't know the exact date, but my guess is it was probably sometime after 2005 or 2006 at the very latest. But that one is a guess. So, packaging, tin sizes, blenders, they all matter a lot. And just because you have a new blender doesn't necessarily mean you're going to have a new tin. But all this stuff feeds into our detective work. And this will help you know your prices. I'm going to get into knowing prices in the next video. We're also going to talk a lot about distributors. We're going to talk about EU warning labels. We're going to talk about how to tell whether the tobacco is still any good in the tin, and how to ask the right questions of an eBay seller. So I know this is a little rushed. I can tell because my pipe is tasting a little ashy, and we're already at 23 minutes here. So I'm going to let you go. This is Steel Cowboy ending part 1 of buying old tins of tobacco from the great state of Texas. Have a good night.